Hello and welcome to the Youth Leadership Webinar Series sponsored by the National Empowerment Center. The title of this webinar is Emotional CPR by and for Youth. And it's presented by Shira Collins, who's the Youth Coordinator for the National Empowerment Center, Brisa Gavidia, and Felicity Kruger of Youth Move. My name's Oryx Cohen, and I am your host from the National Empowerment Center. And I have to say it's just a great privilege to be able to work with these folks and support them and just really witness the work that they are doing. And I think you're in for a real treat today to hear about emotional CPR for youth, and how that applies to youth leadership. So this webinar was developed with support, and there's our grant number from SAMHSA and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. The views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of CMHS, SAMHSA, or HHS. This webinar is being recorded, and you can actually download the PowerPoint, which is in a PDF format, under the handouts, so you can do that directly from your control box or control panel. And you can have the presentation right now, but it will also be posted along with the archive audio recording and video recording at powertoyou.org at our website. You will also be emailed a certificate of attendance. So we want to make this as interactive as possible. We do have over 200 registrants. So with a webinar, in order to interact through this format, through GoToWebinar, you can use the question function to make comments or ask questions. And for now, and I will type something in the chat here in a second, but we'd love to know where you're from, your name, and if you have an organizational affiliation, what brings you here today. We'd love to hear from you. And then the way this works is I have to actually copy and paste what you put in that question box and put it in the chat so that everybody can see it. So that's a way that we can make this a little bit more interactive. Also, this is a part of a series, a youth leadership series, and we actually have another webinar in the series next week, a week from today, Wednesday, from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Dan Adams from Sources of Strength is going to be presenting about their program. Should be very interesting and a good presentation next week. I'm going to put the registration link in the chat for that. You're welcome to join us. Also, I didn't mention, but another hat of mine, I moonlight as a film producer, and a film that I co-produced that I'm also featured in. It's called Healing Voices. And I just want to let you know that you have an opportunity to see that for free tonight and be a part of a wonderful community of folks who are going to be watching that film on Zoom. It's sponsored by the University of New Hampshire, and I'm also going to put that registration link in the chat. It would be great to see some of you later tonight. So with that, I am going to turn it over to your great presenters. And First, we have Breeza.
Hi, my name's Breeza. I'm 21. I've been practicing ECPR and incorporating it in my life since I was practically like a little child. So ECPR is definitely a huge part, if not the most important part of my life. I really try to incorporate it with my friends, my family, with my work. Yeah, it's a great tool to use when someone is in distress or when you're in distress. For me, CPR. So yeah, I really love ECPR and I'm happy to be here.
Hi everybody, I'm Felicity. My age is now 18. I look at that and I'm like, oh yeah, that's different. Um, I'm relatively new to ECPR, but I started getting into it last year, and it is something that really changed the way I think about things and changed the way I talk to people. And it really comes in handy with working with kids. It's a new way of them being talked to, and they've never heard it before. And it really validates them and their feelings, and it validates my friends when I talk to them and my family. And it's really a cool way of talking to people and thinking about all the ways that it might help somebody. So, yeah, that's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Shira. I'm the youth coordinator for the National Empowerment Center, and I'm 26. And I'm also really passionate about ECPR. It's also been a huge part of my life, and I'm involved with both peer support, and I also work as a clinician, and it informs both of those. So it's something that's really helps me in my work and really helps me to connect with others and support others in a way that feels aligned with my values of trauma-informed care and kind of non-pathologizing approaches that focus more on a person-to-person connection. So I'm really passionate about peer-led services developed by and for youth. So I am super excited about this webinar today and about youth ECPR.
All right. So, ECPR, emotional CPR, just as a person's physical heart needs attention in a cardiac crisis, a person's emotional heart needs attention in an emotional crisis. ECPR is a form of heart-to-heart connection for emotional risk. Risk. Sorry, I can't pronounce that one. Reciculation.
Resuscitation.
Resuscitation. Thank you. All right, the three phases to practice ECPR. The C is to connect with compassion and concern to open up communication, especially heart to heart. The P is for empower, to experience passion and purpose. And the R is to revitalize, increase energy, new life, and creativity, hope, and interest. So the purpose of ECPR, we aspire to connect through feelings first, respecting each other as equal human, enabling us to be together without fixing, judging, or imposing our beliefs, allowing us to explore the unknown together in the present moment, releasing our power to create new voice, new purpose, and new hope. So the intentions of ECPR. Number one is to connect. I will connect through feelings first, respecting you as equal, human, listening with eyes, ears, and heart. I feel like that's the first step is very important. Just to start with making sure that you're making eye contact, you're listening, you're fully present. That's a great start to just being there for somebody. So number two, another part of connecting, I will hold a space for your feelings and my feelings, breathing into a deep space becoming aware of my broader feelings and thoughts. Number 2, I think being aware of how you're feeling as well as the other person, and also the feelings of the other person, what that's bringing up in yourself. Because sometimes you see someone else and they're sad and upset about something, and you feel really upset, and you're like, why am I feeling that way when it's not happening to me? And it could be because maybe what that other person is feeling is bringing up emotions in yourself that maybe you didn't even recognize. So it's important to understand that you are feeling emotions as well as the other person. So number 3, I will share my broader feelings / thoughts and stay with you. Just like I said, when those thoughts come up, it's important to share with the other person so that person knows that they're not alone and that you also feel sad or just concerned, or maybe you feel upset as well. Okay, so the intentions of ECPR. Okay, so number 4, empower. I will be with you without fixing, judging, or advising you. This one is so important, the not judging or fixing. There's so many times where I'm with a friend or maybe just a family member and something's happening in my life and they're like, no, I wanna fix it. I wanna fix the situation. And I just simply tell them, I don't need fixing. I just would like someone to listen to me. I'd like someone to just sit there and hear what I have to say. So that's very important. Number 5, I am not sure what is best for you, but together we can explore the unknown. I think that's important because we don't have the answers. Like I don't have the answers for that person. And I think it's important not to act like you're above someone and think, oh, I know exactly what you need to do. You need to do this, this, and that, because we don't know what's fully the right decision for someone else, and we can't make that decision for someone else. So that's why it's important to be there with them and tell them, hey, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm here and we're going to work it through together. So number 6, together we will release the power to heal that lies within us, moving towards our wellness. So this is kind of like coming together with that person, like you're feeling connected with that person and you're telling them, you know what, we have the power to heal ourselves. And it's not telling that person what to do, but just helping that person find their inner power, empowering them, helping them feel like, okay, I can do this and I can move towards like my happiness and my well-being and the things that I want in life. Like there is hope. So number 7, revitalize. We authentically create new life, new voice, and new hope in the present moment, which is revitalization. So that's just like that moment when that person's like, wow, okay, like there is hope. There is more to my life. There's things to look forward to, and I'm not alone. And just, it's like when the sun shines from the clouds and you think it's like, oh, it's gonna be a really like, dark day, and then the sun finally shines. That's kind of what it feels like when you feel revitalization. All right. Okay, so we're gonna do a demonstration. Me and Felicity, right?
Yeah, so the way that demonstrations are usually done is that everyone else turns off their camera. This is how we've kind of come to do them over Zoom or over whatever platform we're using, that everyone else turns off their camera so that it's just the 2 people talking so they can really connect and see each other. So in a minute, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my camera. And we just encourage you to really notice whatever feelings you have as this demonstration unfolds. Whatever comes up for you, any thoughts, any feelings, reactions, body sensations. And we're just going to try to have a little bit of a discussion using the chat after the demonstration. So we really welcome you to share whatever you experience during this.
All right. Hi, Felicity.
Hi, Breeza. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just had work this morning, so that was nice.
You like work?
Yeah, I just started a new job with working with the elderly. So it's definitely different because I worked with kids like you. So it's kind of a different switch, you know? But it's kind of like there's similar things like you need patience and, you know, like patience with kids and elderly is important. So, but yeah, it's new.
An adjustment? Yeah, I get that. I can't imagine switching from kids to a different age group. Switching
Yeah.
from like one smaller age group to like teens is even different.
No, I know because I worked with 5-year-olds and then I had to work with like 11 to 12-year-olds and 9-year-olds. I'm like, that's very different as well. So yeah, it's a switch, but I think it's important because I want to work with people. So I think it's important to like work with all kinds of people. And like when we do, you know, ECPR, the trainings with the teens, it's nice because there's like younger people like between the ages of 18 to 26, 25. So that's nice.
It's nice to have a wide range of
Yeah.
knowing that. And
Hear
then,
different stories and perspectives from like all different ages.
yeah, it's insane. I did a training a little while ago that talked about like the biases that the different age groups might have. It's very interesting to think about, and then working with the different age groups.
Yeah, it is interesting. But I'm happy we're talking today because I actually had yesterday, I had an anxiety attack, a pretty bad one. And so it's nice to like come here so then I can kind of talk about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anxiety is tough.
Yeah, I
It's like,
had bad anxiety as in high school. Um, like my teachers were really helpful and they accommodated with me, and I didn't want to use it as an excuse because I don't want people to think that I was like weak. You know, I didn't want to use my anxiety as an excuse to like get extra help on things and stuff. But I realized like it's something that I really did have. So, and I still have, but it's not as bad. But when it comes up and it's just so overwhelming that I can't think of like anything else.
that has to be really tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it is because like I was with a friend of mine and I was trying to calm myself down. I was with a group of people and I wanted to socialize, but I was in the bathroom like crying and breaking down. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, there was, you know, those thoughts that come in mind, like those little voices saying like, oh, you're not good enough, you're worthless, and or this your friend's gonna leave you like some other people. Like it was like a big moment. And I was just trying to calm myself down and think, you know what? I need to stop thinking that way, you know?
Yeah, I really feel for you, and I'm glad that there was a moment where you could sort of be like, these aren't real thoughts, like, but I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I even thought of ECPR. I thought like the friend I was with at first they said like, "Oh, stop. Like don't be dramatic," you know? And I was like, I'm trying not to. That's why I'm hiding in the bathroom, you know. I don't want to cry in front of everyone. But later on they were like, you know, trying to be understanding. I think they realized how bad it was. But I just thought like I it'd be nice also if they knew ECPR because like this is something real and a lot of people deal with that, and it's not good to react in a way like, oh, you're being dramatic, you know, or like stop thinking about what you're thinking, like just be happy or like everything's fine, you know, kind of thing. Like you just want someone to just sit there and hold you and just listen, you know. And like even though I know these things aren't necessarily true that are like in my head, even though I know they're not necessarily true, that's still what I'm thinking, and that's still how I feel. So I guess in that moment, I'm like, oh, I really wish this person knew ECPR, you know?
Yeah, I'll, I can't imagine. I grew up with anxiety, so I get to it on a level, but I'm really sorry that at the beginning they were like, oh, dismissive. I wish
Yeah,
I was there because I would have been sitting there and hugging you.
I'm sure you would have. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's just the like a lot of people just don't they just want to fix it really quick. And when someone's like out of control or really sad, they're like, no, 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 like don't cry, like, you know, everything's fine. Like, but I think people are more scared of like it makes them uncomfortable, you know? And so that's why, you know, it's important to just sometimes realize, you know what, they just don't really know. And sometimes that's why I had to tell that person, I said, hey, like, you know, I'm not trying to be dramatic. This is just genuinely like I'm just having a panic attack, and I just would appreciate it if, you know, you just like would kind of not tell me that I'm overreacting, you know, and then that's when they kind of realize, okay, this is something real that's happening. So I think communication and just saying kind of what you need sometimes, because sometimes people don't know how to be there for you, and sometimes just telling them, you know, I just appreciate it if you could just like sit here with me. I think that's important. And some people really they can listen and they can be like, you know what, yeah, okay, I can do that. And some people can't, but it's good to at least communicate that, because then I would have felt really alone, you know.
Yeah, that's really powerful that you did that though.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of you. There's like this feeling of like, wow, that's a strong thing to just tell them that, and the communication that you had with them.
Yeah, thank you. It is hard, you know, because like you just wish people just knew how to like just be there for you. But at the same time, it's like, you know, everyone's learning, so you can't just expect that people are going to know. So I think, yeah, it's important to communicate. Yeah.
I find myself sort of needing like a breath. Do you want to like breathe with me? Just like a deep breath in.
Yeah. I can feel my heart's really heavy right now.
So let's go. That felt really nice. I'm really glad that we did that because I was like, oh, my heart is heavy for you. So,
Thank you.
is there anything else that you want to talk about, or do you want to?
No, that was just what happened last night. And normally when that happens, like I was gonna go home and be by myself, but my friend was like, no, stay here. Um, and I did have a good night, but you know, I probably should have just went home. But it was nice that they at least were trying to like get me involved with everyone else. But yeah, that's what happened last night. I feel better about it though.
Hopefully, maybe tonight you can have some of the time on your own.
Yeah, I need some alone time, relax. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm really glad to hear that it's better than it was, but I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, it happens, you know, everyone goes through it sometimes. All right.
Okay, thank you both so much for that real play. And thank you both for being so willing to share and be authentic here. I did just want to mention that in emotional CPR trainings and webinars, we don't do role plays. We don't kind of have people make up a scenario. We do real plays. So everything that's shared is authentic and is true for whatever the person is saying and going through at the time. So I think that's kind of a unique aspect of eCPR that can help it feel, help people connect more and help it feel more real as opposed to kind of an artificial scenario. So usually after real plays, we kind of start by asking each person in the real play how they felt and any feelings, any thoughts that came up for them. And then we'll ask everyone else to resonate with that, and you can all share your feelings. So Breeza, do you want to share a little bit about how that was for you?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind was just like I felt understood. And that I think that's a big thing for me, is that it's feeling like people understand or are willing to understand my complicated emotions sometimes. So and last night, even though my friend later on did try to understand, I just felt like I needed a bit more. So it was nice. I got to share just like a nice sense of like release, you know, just letting it out. So thank you, Felicity.
And Felicity, do you want to share how that was for you?
Yeah, all I wanted to do was just hug her. I was like, I wish I could hug her right now. And I really understood the feelings that she was going through, and I could feel my heart. It was really heavy the whole time. I was like, oh, I know exactly what that feels like to cry in the bathroom and not have anybody understand. So I was trying to be really empathetic because I knew exactly what she was going through. And there was a moment where I was like, oh, I need to take a deep breath. So I was just like, you know what? Let's do that together.
Yeah, that's great. And I felt a lot of connection when I saw this real play. I just saw you two connecting in so many ways. Felicity, I think you did a great job just listening very non-judgmentally and really making Riza feel heard, not rushing to fix anything or offer solutions or give advice, just kind of being present with what she was going through. And I think some moments of empowerment that I felt is when you shared that you were proud of Riza and how much strength that took for her to kind of advocate for herself and share some of what she shared. I thought that was a really big moment of empowerment. And then I also thought when you kind of suggested, why don't we just take a moment and take a breath? That also felt like kind of a shift into empowerment and maybe some revitalization, that you just kind of took some space for yourselves and started kind of going in another direction. So yeah, I think that was a really powerful real play, and I'd love to invite others to share their thoughts and feelings. And any moments of empowerment or connection, empowerment or revitalization that you noticed. So I'll just kind of read those as we get those in. Intrusive thoughts can be really strong sometimes. Definitely hard to try to change the thinking into these thoughts aren't real. For sure. Yeah. I think that's great feedback. And I think a part of ECPR that, at least for me, I really resonate with is that it's not necessarily about trying to challenge someone's thoughts or say this is or isn't real. It's more just kind of helping someone feel listened to and heard, and building connection. Do you all want to share anything about that?
Oh, I was just what you said about kind of telling people like their thoughts aren't real or are not real. That's kind of what happened with my friend. Like they were telling me like, oh, but that's not true. And I understand like, they were trying to make me feel better. But it's like, yeah, but those thoughts are real in my head. That is how I feel sometimes. Not all the time, but that is how I feel sometimes. And it's okay to just acknowledge that that is how I feel. And I don't want to feel like, someone to dismiss how I feel because they're trying to make me feel better, but at the same time, it doesn't really make me feel better,
Absolutely.
Definitely second that, because it's like, oh, these are the thoughts that are happening in this moment, and I can't really change that. But just having somebody who is like, yeah, I understand that those thoughts are there, and that can be hard.
Yeah. An emotional CPR was developed by people with lived experience of like extreme states or states that would be called psychosis too. So I think that can be a really important element of supporting someone going through that too. That sometimes it's not about like talking someone out of it or challenging their reality, but like accepting that that is real for them in this moment, and how can you just be present and be engaged with them. We have another comment that says, wishing everyone did know ECPR, as Breeza mentioned, because emotions are real. Yes, I agree. And then we have another comment that says, supportive and great empowerment. What a wonderful real play. I especially loved taking a breath together. Using ECPR, I often need a deep breath when listening. So that was a very useful tool that I will definitely take with me. Awesome. I thought it was great how Felicity empathized with Breeza and focused on her rather than just saying, oh, that happens to me too, and I know exactly how it feels.
Yeah, you listen to what I had to say, and then kind of later on you're like, oh yeah, that's happened to me too. So it's like then I can relate to you, but it's nice like in the moment you took that time to like really listen to what I had to say.
And we have invalidating someone's reality can escalate their feelings too and can be isolating, for sure. I think the really important part of ECPR, like for me, one of the most core fundamental elements is just like you are there to help the other person feel less alone. So sometimes challenging that person's thoughts or saying like, oh, it's not real, or, you know, this isn't really as big of a deal as you think it is, or whatever, like that can make somebody feel more alone and more distanced from, and like, oh, you don't get it. Versus if you just kind of acknowledge like, wow, that's really tough, like you're in a lot of pain right now, which is what you did, Felicity. I think that really can help a person feel less alone. And we have a comment that says just being fully present for someone is healing. Absolutely. Yeah. Any final reflections? I want to thank everyone who shared comments and reflections about this. Oh, we have one more. The statement that I believe Breeza said, these are the thoughts that I'm having and I know they're not true, but they're still here, is just resonating with me and I can't get it out of my head. It's true. These things stick with you and sometimes you can't just get them out by asking or forcing. You need to have patience. Definitely. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your reflections on this. Any final reflections before we go back to the PowerPoint? Okay. So we can go to the next slide then. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about specifically how we adapted emotional CPR for youth. So there were a few different things that we added or changed to just help it fit with the needs of young people. So first of all, it's led by young people. Most of our trainings have an entirely youth-led training team. Sometimes there will be like an older adult involved just to help like with support or like mentorship. But it really is led by youth, which I think that helps the space of the training feel safe for young people. So many times young people are in spaces where there's kind of a power dynamic where they're maybe at school where they're kind of being graded or judged or told what to do by older adults. Or yeah, there's just a lot of young people's lives that are really influenced by older adults and they don't have much say and they don't get to really just have freedom to talk about what it's like to be a young person kind of without that external influence. So these trainings are really a safe space for young people to share what's going on with them without feeling that power dynamic as much. And we've had really positive feedback on that too. A lot of young people have said that like this is the first space that they've been in where they're really able to share super authentically what's going on with them without feeling judged or without feeling like an older adult is going to tell them what to do or make them feel maybe like minimize their struggles, tell them like, oh, you know, you'll get over it, you'll grow out of it, whatever they might have been told before. So I think that's a really important aspect of emotional CPR for youth is that it really is by and for youth. There's also a different structure a little bit. Usually emotional CPR, kind of the general training is over, it's like 3 or 4 hours over 3 or 4 days. So it's longer periods of time over a shorter period of time. The youth trainings are over a period of 5 days, and it's about 2.5 hours each of those days, 2 hours the final day. So we feel that that's really helpful for youth because it helps break up the information more. I think as young people, our attention spans are maybe shorter, or there's more kind of lecture that we're sitting through. A lot of us are in school or maybe college or grad school. So we're already in a lot of classes. We might be doing homework, things like that. So it's really helpful to have like shorter periods of time as opposed to sitting through longer blocks. And it just kind of breaks it up a bit, allows us to have more time to process. There's also a lot more video and multimedia. We really try hard with the youth trainings to not make it feel like a lecture, not make it feel like school, and not have that power dynamic where it feels like basically you're a student in a classroom being told what to do by someone older than you, but really it's a collaborative learning process where everyone is participating together and learning from each other. So kind of along that line, we show a lot of videos, we have some music, and we also have interactive exercises. So a lot of discussion, a lot of activities where people can share different things that they're going through or different ways that they relate to whatever is being presented, ways that they might incorporate it into their own lives. A lot of breakout room exercises. So we really want it to be participatory. We also do some activities to emphasize the importance of like self-care. We call it Me CPR. So really emphasizing the importance of taking care of yourself as you discuss some pretty heavy topics, as you support other people. So to do that, we kind of have some like fun self-care activities. We'll play a song and encourage people to turn their cameras off and dance or just move to the beat. Or we'll do maybe some like video meditations or maybe some like Qigong type exercises. So it's really, again, not just sitting in the room and being lectured to. It's really about interacting and getting up and moving. We did simplify the language a bit too. We just tried to make the training a lot more accessible and understandable to younger people who maybe don't have as much of a background in mental health or who are less familiar with some of the concepts. And then finally, we added a journal, which we'll show in just a minute. So that kind of has some of the questions that we ask during the interactive exercises and some pieces of information about eCPR. And it gives people a chance to take notes or reflect on what they're learning, and then they can share what they wrote if they want. We do always emphasize that it's optional. It's not like school where they're being assigned homework, but it's more just for them if participants want to kind of reflect on something or if they want to make sure to write something down so that they can share it later. That's a space to do that, and they're welcome to like decorate it and customize it in a way that they like and enjoy, but it's nothing required. It's nothing that they turn in. Next slide. So we just wanted to show some sample journal pages. So you can see that on the cover, we have this journal belongs to, and everyone can write their name. And we encourage them to kind of decorate the cover how they want and just customize it. And then we have different journaling prompts. So we have like the introductory page, which this has like some questions that we ask when we have people introduce themselves. So for example, we have a rose, bud, and thorn exercise where we ask people to say a rose, like something they're proud of, a bud, something they're working toward, and then a thorn, something getting in the way. We find that that's a really helpful way to encourage people to share whatever's going on for them and be more open and engaged. And so we invite people to kind of write that in the journal, write anything they'd like to share, and then we can go around and everyone can share with the group. And we've found that that's a really great way to kind of get the ball rolling on sharing openly and encouraging people to be authentic about their feelings, and not just stay on the surface level. Next slide. So we wanted to share an example of a video that we show, which this is like an animated illustration of the idea of empathy versus sympathy, which I think is a really core part of eCPR. So this is something we show in our trainings, and I like that it's kind of animated and illustrated so that it can help simplify the concept a little bit, and I think it's really easily understandable for youth. So if you want to go ahead and play it. I'm not hearing audio.
Disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman. So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. At least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Okay, so next slide. Okay, so this is an example of one of the interactive exercises that we do. We sometimes ask people to check in with this feelings wheel that kind of breaks down emotions and different types of feelings in a pretty easy to understand way, or a way that helps people make sense of what they're feeling. So you can all participate in this if you'd like. If you just want to kind of look at this feelings wheel and share a couple feelings that you're experiencing now. You want to type that in the chat. I would say for me, I'm feeling grateful that this webinar is happening. And I'm feeling excited about seeing all of your comments and reflections. And I'm also probably feeling a little bit anxious because I always get anxious with public speaking and things like that. Frieza and Felicity, do you want to share?
I can go. I'm feeling excited for this webinar and a bunch of other things that are happening in my life. Definitely cheerful, just because a lot of things are really going well, and it's nice to see all these people learning and stuff. And then nervous, public speaking and being on Zoom and technical difficulties. So
Let's see. I'm feeling, I don't know if it's on the chart, but the word that comes to mind is helpful. Because because of my new job and working with, older people, and the woman I was working with, she did not respond well yesterday when I saw her, and then today she was happy to see me. So it just feels good to feel like you're actually helping someone and working to get to know them, and that they're starting to, let you in a bit more. So I feel very helpful today.
Awesome. And we have also some pretty great feeling words in the chat. Someone said grateful, optimistic, appreciative. Someone else said optimistic for a great today, encouraged, content and grateful, moved, enlightened, optimistic. Awesome. I love these words. So yeah, this is something that we emphasize in eCPR because so much of the training is not just being supportive of how someone else is feeling, but being aware of your own feelings and what's coming up for you, and naming those can be such a good way to do that. You have hopeful, grateful, happy, passionate, touched. Awesome. Nervous and optimistic. I am feeling blessed, excited, moved. Cool. Thank you all so much for sharing that. Next slide, please. We also have inspired.
So when we created the youth eCPR, we used a lot of Youth Move Nationals youth engagement charts and spectrums and things like that. So this one is a spectrum of youth engagement. The first one is youth guided. Youth and adult partners are aware and engaged as they explore the ideas and skills of youth leadership and begin to value youth experience as integral to the decision-making process. So that's a bit of the first one. It's sort of when you're thinking about youth guided, youth directed, and youth driven, that's usually the first step. And when we get further into this, there's a bit more, we go more into tokenism and stuff like that. And then there's youth directed. Youth begin to make recommendations and fill steady and meaningful roles in decision-making bodies. Youth and adults collaborate to create and prioritize goals and develop strategies for positive change. This is sort of the mode where youth are beginning to sort of make decisions. I very much think about, like, if you were having a class of students and you were like, okay, what do you want to learn this year? And this is sort of what they're doing. It's sort of more of a adult is leading them, but they're also sort of making the decisions of what they're learning, what they're doing. Youth driven, youth have self-awareness and skills to initiate change, as well as the intrinsic motivation and sense of purpose to follow through. Youth have mutually respectful relationships with adults and other youth in the community as they partner for the change desired by youth. This is sort of very much the youth are making most of the decisions. The goal is to be one of these three things. I know that in eCPR we are very much youth driven. We created everything youth driven when we made the things that we had mostly youth, creating what the eCPR was going to look like. So yeah, that's that. Can we go to the next slide, please? Youth eCPR, youth-directed and youth-driven. As I said earlier, when we created Youth eCPR, we used mostly youth, and youth filled meaningful decision roles and making roles on an advisory board. So creating Youth eCPR, there was an advisory board filled by mostly youth. I was on that advisory board. So we were the ones making decisions about what this was going to look like, what kinds of things would be the best helpful in a youth eCPR training. I love this quote, nothing about us without us, which is if you're going to work with youth and if you're going to make decisions with youth, you should really live by that quote, especially when doing things that are really going to affect them in schools, in law, in trainings that are mostly going to be run or be used for them. December Youth eCPR training, led entirely by youth. The highest age of the trainer was 26. So this was our first completely youth-led eCPR training, and it happened in December. It was a really cool training. I believe I was on that one as a trainer, or I think I was an apprentice at that moment. But it's really cool because we got a lot of positive feedback about how it just felt like a safe space. And that it was nice to hear from youth that were close to their age range, and hearing that with doing things like this, they felt like a safer place than when they would have had an adult. It would have been a different dynamic when you have adults in the room. So that was sort of the history of youth eCPR and like our first full training. Next slide. So this is another one of Youth Move National's youth engagement. So it's sort of set up in 3 different styles. Object to, recipient, I can't pronounce words, for, and resource with. So the first style is style 1, object to, sorry, my dogs are barking. The adult is in no control with no intention of youth involvement. The objective, personal growth of young people. The byproduct, conformity of young people and acceptance in the program as it is. So the adult is in control with not involving youth. So it's sort of like, I don't know, if you had like a toddler and you couldn't, that toddler can't think about what they're gonna do. So I think a lot of people who use this style think of kids, no matter what age they are, as these toddlers who don't know what's best for them. So they don't try to involve youth. They don't try to get them involved. They're just like, we know what's best for you, deal with it type of thing. And it sort of creates a very much structured and something that may not work best for youth. And then style 2, recipient for, once again, can't pronounce that word. I apologize very much. The adult is control and allows youth involvement. The objective, personal growth of young people. The byproduct, increase organizational effectiveness. So the adult is the one still mainly in control in this style, but they are at this point involving youth somewhat. They're sort of like, well, you can help out with this and this, but I'm still going to be in control. I sort of think about like experiences I had when I was younger. I would just sort of help out setting up. I wouldn't be making decisions. I would help out setting up and maybe fixing a few things, being like a gopher type of thing. I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard of that in like the job world, but the gopher is somebody that goes for getting things. They go get you coffee, they go get you this. So they are like, youth are sort of involved, but they're not really the ones doing anything. And then style 3, resource with, there's a youth adult partnership, shared control. The objective, increased organizational effectiveness. The byproduct, personal growth of young people and adults. So this one is the style that we always try to go for. They are equals, adults and youth. They are both doing about the same amount of work. They are both trying to share with each other. It is very much a normal conversation type of thing where everybody in the room is participating, everybody in the room is giving feedback. And it sort of creates a very, I think with a lot of groups, when you have this style, it creates a safe space and it creates feeling like you can talk to these adults about maybe this one would be better for them, and them actually listening to you, other than I'm the adult, I know what's best for you. And then in this style, it is, okay, yeah, let's think about that. Let's figure that out. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah, you're the youth, you know what's best for you type of situation. And it creates a much more civil way of working with everybody, and everybody is very understanding of each other. Next slide. So this is a hearts ladder. I can talk about this thing for hours. I know so much about the hearts ladder, except I've been pronouncing it wrong for years. I always pronounced it as the harps ladder. So if I go back to that, ignore me. It is called the hearts ladder. So this was something that Youth Move National created. It involves the very different levels of youth engagement and youth guided things. So we, after a lot of research, we did find out that to be a lot of places and organizations can say, yes, we have a youth, but there are different levels of how they have their youth. The first one is young people are manipulated. So it's sort of like they're just, as I said earlier, being used as like this gopher, and like, look, we have a youth, but they aren't really used for anything important. They're just sort of there to do what the adults want them to do, not there to be anything of con or sorry, I am bad at English. Anything of use. They're just sort of there and being manipulated to do what the adults want them to do, which we don't like that. Please don't do that. Young people are a decoration is the second step of Hearts Ladder. This one's a very interesting one because along with number 3, a lot of people don't realize they're doing it. It is very much, you have, say you have a panel and you want youth involvement. So you'll say, oh, we do have a youth, and it's just somebody who's sitting there on this panel, bored out of their minds. But every time someone's like, do you have any youth? You're like, yes, look, she's right there. She's our youth. And she's just there being like, if you had a Christmas tree in your home. Do you have a Christmas tree? Yeah, she's right there. See, isn't she pretty? That kind of thing. And then number 3 is young people are tokenized, which is also unfortunately something that happens quite a lot. It's not very good. It's very much similar to young people are decorations, except this one can very much cause burnout. Um, Tokenizing, if you don't know what that is, it is very much like if you were having a TV show and they're like, oh, you don't have enough POC characters, they'll add a POC character and he's just like a side character that has nothing to do with any of the plot. He's just there. And every once in a while he might talk, but they are like, we don't know what he's saying, that kind of thing. And a lot of organizations do that without even realizing that they're doing that. They'll have a youth sitting on a panel and he might talk, but when the youth talks, they're just sort of like, okay. Anyways, back to what we were talking about. And it is very easy to just be like, yes, we have a youth right here. See, that kind of thing. And then we have step number 4. Young people are assigned and informed. So this one, you're sort of having youth on a panel and they're sort of knowing what's going on. I think this one, they are still sort of confused and bored. They don't really know what's going on, but they sort of do. You're giving them some information. They are sort of being taught what is going on. Maybe you'll give them a couple assignments to do, but they're still not super involved. They're like not tokens anymore, but they're still not as involved as you would like them to be, compared to like step 8. And then number 5, young people are consulted and informed. So this one, I often think about, as I said earlier, teacher-student relationships. They know what's going on. They are asked what would be best for them to help to learn, but the teacher is still very much the one doing all of the stuff. They are very much the ones controlling the situation. They are very much the ones who are guiding what is happening, but they are informing their youth of what is going on. They are asking their youth if they would like to learn about some stuff, and they are sort of still creating a situation where it is very student teacher type of thing. And then we have number 6, adult initiated shared decisions with young people. So this is where we're sort of getting more into guided and youth guided, but we're still not quite there yet. So it's very much adult initiated. I think very much about maybe like a camp counselor. They are the ones who are doing everything, but especially with older kids, they are the ones who are doing everything. But the older kids in this situation are sort of being like, well, today we would like to go to sailing. We want to sail. We want to kayak. Those are the things we want to do today. And the adults can also be like, yes, that sounds like a good idea. Yes, we can do that. That kind of thing. But the adults are still the ones running the show. And then number 7, young people lead and initiate action. So I sort of, when I think about this one in my head, I like to think of like a group of young people, and then there's an adult in the corner, and he's just standing there as he's watching all of the youth do what they're doing. And he's just there. He's not messing with them. He's just there to make sure that nobody gets hurt or injured. And it's sort of like we're getting to this area where we are very much interested in what we're going to do, but they're still a little worried that we might injure ourselves or do something wrong. So they're just sort of standing in the corner, like checking up on us every once in a while. And then step 8, which is the one that we always hope to be at. Young people and adults share decision making. So we go back to style 3 from the next slide. There is an equal type of thing. They are both being the ones making decisions. There is no watching over youth like they are worried that something's going to happen anymore. It's trusting them that they can make a decision and it's not going to hurt and it's not going to go wrong because they are youth. It is equal, and it is very much just both participants, both youth and adults, are the ones making the decisions. And that's sort of the heart slaughter. The heart slaughter is something that is very detailed, and it is very interesting when you think about your youth in your organizations. A lot of people, when they look at the heart slaughter, they always are like, oh, we're number 8, like we're on step 8. But if you were going into more details, and this might be hard to recognize in yourself, sometimes you aren't on step 8, and that's okay. You just have to like work harder to be towards where you are. I know that in one of the organizations I'm in, we have times where we'll look at heart slaughter and we're like, yeah, we're on 8. And then we'll think about it a bit more, and it's like, okay, maybe we're closer to 5 or 6. And it's just a matter of trying to work and trying to talk to your youth and make sure that you're closer to the situation. So that's heart slaughter. We can go to the next slide. So now we just have questions. So if anybody has questions or any comments that they want to make, feel free to put them in the chat and we will answer them.
All right. Well, wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. I was really moved by the presentation, and moved by the response. It's been really positive and supportive. So please ask questions using the question function. We have, maybe I'll just read a comment first from someone who had to leave, I believe. She just wanted to thank all the facilitators. Excellent presentation. Grateful that she became more hopeful and inspired by you. The amazing youth, young adults. I am trained in ECPR. Happy to see this specific forum just for young people. I am 64 years young. Have a wonderful, amazing day to everyone. All right, so let's get to a question. This one is a good question. Maybe Shira can relate. As a social worker, I sometimes struggle with the science of keeping in the mind frame that it is not about me, and discussing what my experience was in a similar situation. So how do you balance, being professionally if you're professionally trained to not make it about you, but then obviously ECPR, we learned the value of sharing your own experience. So how do you balance that as a social worker?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and that's something that I've kind of grappled a lot with as someone who's involved with both like clinical work and peer support. And kind of, yeah, being trained as a professional not to really self-disclose much, but, you know, but also being a trainer in ECPR where self-disclosure can be really important. And I guess what I would say is I think there are ways to self-disclose as a professional or in peer support where it's not making it about you and where it is beneficial to the person being supported. And also where it's, you know, you're still maintaining whatever boundaries you need to or feel comfortable with. So sometimes that might look like you're not sharing necessarily your own experience of a certain mental health like diagnosis or within the mental health system, but maybe you're just sharing the feelings that you have when you're hearing someone share their experience, just like, oh, I'm feeling really sad hearing you talk about that, or wow, I'm feeling angry on your behalf. Sometimes even disclosures like that are still a way to maintain boundaries and keep the focus on the other person. But it's still a way to be authentic and share what is showing up for you in that moment. And then sometimes that might look like disclosing things that you've experienced in your background in a way that where it's building connection with the other person and in a way that you feel like will help them know that they're not alone. I think from what I've learned in my clinical training, self-disclosure is okay and can be even an important part of the therapeutic process if it's going to benefit the client and if you feel like it's something that will be really helpful and will strengthen your relationship. So I think definitely there are ways to bring ECPR into whatever professional work you're doing, even if you're not sharing the full extent of your experience or your background.
Great. So the next question is, how many youth-led ECPR sessions have already been run?
Is it close to 10, I think now, or?
Yeah, I think we're still pretty early in the process, but yeah, it's been around 10. We hope for many more as we get more youth trainers, and then youth trainers can organize their own trainings. Okay. How can I get my granddaughter involved with this training?
I mean, you can look up some of the ECPR trainings. I think it's on the National Empowerment website. And I'm sure if you just tell her about it, she would be willing to do it. And it's very easy to find time because it usually is after school. So I hope that helps a little bit. And it's sort of, I think we've done a couple trainings that are, it's usually a free sign up, at least the trainings I've done. And you can just sign up to do it. They're all virtual, so it's pretty easy.
Yeah, we're very lucky that we can do some of the trainings for free because we do have a grant from SAMHSA, which supports the youth involvement. So there are several free trainings. We can't make every training free, so there may be some trainings that are available that there is a cost for. But I just posted the website in the chat that Felicity mentioned, and you're also welcome to email us, and I'll just put my email, my personal email, in the chat too. That's a good way to to get in contact. Yeah, because if you email and say, oh, my granddaughter wants to be in a training, there may not be a training directly coming up, but we can save those folks who are basically on a waiting list, and then we do a pretty good job of getting everybody in a training who wants to be in a training. So just contact us. This one is eCPR suitable for non-young adults, or has it been specifically formulated for that age group? Anybody want to answer that one?
I guess I'll answer that. Oh, well, actually, yeah, eCPR started for adults. And so we just recently did youth eCPR. So the curriculum is actually mainly for adults. So that's why we just kind of went to youth. And I've been in a lot of trainings from people from around the ages of 35 to in their 50s. So it's definitely interesting to, hear perspectives from people who are older than me. But yes, it's mainly been for adults. So now we just started doing youth.
We have a comment. I am very inspired by this presentation. Thank you for teaching us about eCPR, how to work with youth in this area. So awesome. This one is another comment. I took eCPR a few years ago in person. I do appreciate the opportunity to still learn not in person. I plan to go back to school to receive a degree in counseling. Thank you for your time and your information. Your demonstration helped me to think a little differently. Thank you. Really, this is another one. I'm really appreciative to have been able to hear from you all. What would you all say are the most challenging factors of today's culture around emotional well-being to overcome and utilizing eCPR? Good question.
I live in rural Kentucky, so definitely stigma where we come from. In rural areas, it is very much just pick yourself up by your bootstraps, you're fine, that kind of idea. So it's very much stigmatized for the just understanding and sitting there with somebody. They're more, I guess I'm trying to word it right, they're more upfront and they aren't really willing to sit down with somebody and just understand and listen. They're just very, this isn't what's happening. You're fine. That kind of idea. And mental health is very much not a thing that is around here. We don't have mental health priorities. There isn't mental health as much as there should be. I know that in some of our schools there is some mental health stuff, but emotional CPR would be something that a lot of people around where I live would just sort of look at and be like, so you're talking to people? Yeah, we all talk to people, and they don't want to understand the difference of sitting and talking to somebody and listening. They're just sort of like, okay, this is weird type of idea.
Anybody else want to comment on that one?
Yeah, I would definitely agree that stigma is a big part of it. I think that there's multiple forms of stigma or ways that it can show up. And I think sometimes, yeah, it definitely looks like kind of just get over it, like this isn't a big deal, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or do yoga or meditation, just kind of this impulse to fix it or push a solution rather than just being able to listen and sit with someone's emotions. I think other times it looks like an impulse or over medicalization, where I think sometimes the impulse is to diagnose everything or offer medication or maybe use recourses like hospitalization or things like that, which again, sometimes that can be helpful, and I don't want to knock that for anyone that's found that helpful, but sometimes that can serve to make somebody feel like labeled or feel different or feel like they're being told they're broken. And sometimes it can ignore like systemic factors that are happening that are impacting how someone is feeling, or trauma that's happening, or just what's going on in the world right now, which may be causing a lot of emotional distress and pain. So I think that can be an issue, just kind of how common that is, and how common that is as like a first response, as opposed to really trying to have a conversation with someone and just connect on a human to human level.
Okay. We ready to move on to the next one? All right. This is just a comment. I love Felicity's exposition of Hart's ladder. It was a real wake-up call to a so-called mature person.
Thank you.
I think this is another comment. I work with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and this is a powerful way to help staff to communicate in a more emotionally supportive way, and could help staff connect better with their own feelings and emotions. Definitely. And another comment, that's amazing. It's so inspiring that eCPR is going to be spread throughout today's youth to create a much more compassionate world for generations to come. Nice. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of emails and contacts on the website as a result of this. So you're all going to be busy, and we're going to need to have more trainers. Maybe you, or who were in the audience today, you'll end up being a trainer soon, hopefully. Another comment. I work for a mental health organization. My position is to change the minds of adults and have the youth and young adults sit at the table and be heard, and empower the youth and young adults to speak, and for adults to listen. Great job, ladies. Another comment. Wow, I'm so thrilled to have participated in today's webinar. Thank you, Breeza, Felicity, Shira, Oryx, as an eCPR educator in training. I appreciate every single word that you've spoken today, as eCPR for youth, by youth, brings me so much hope and positivity for mental health priorities for our future. Okay, here's a question. Good question. How do you maintain healthy boundaries in teaching, practicing eCPR with youth? Would anybody like to tackle that one? About this boundary question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what exactly they mean, like by boundaries.
Oh, then they said this one's probably best for Oryx. Interesting. Well, this is a good discussion topic, I think, because we've had a little, not a lot, but a little bit of experience of folks saying, "What are you doing at NEC, having young people, teach eCPR to other young people when some serious stuff is going to come up, and people are going to be talking about trauma, maybe abuse that's happened in their lives, some difficult stuff, suicidal feelings. How can you have youth without any adults in the room? That's irresponsible. Um, and what we found is actually these young people are very capable of handling those difficult situations and of maintaining whatever boundaries they need to maintain in a training. And we haven't really had the experience that it's any different from a training with adults where difficult things come up. You know, and it's actually been liberating from what I've heard, because I'm not there. What I've heard is that it's liberating for youth to be able to talk about this stuff with other youth and not have an adult in the room and not have to worry about being reported for saying certain thing or whatever. That being said, we do, you know, in Felicity's presentation, you mentioned, you know, that we work together, adults and young people work together. So we do try to provide as much support as we can when issues come up. Myself, I'm available, Dan Fisher, Maria Ostheimer, who actually happens to be Breeza's grandmother. There are lots of supportive adults available to bounce things off, provide guidance, but I have to say these young people are very capable of handling these situations. Did you want to comment on that? Any of you?
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And I would just say one way that we maintain boundaries is that just in ECPR, we really encourage, like both in youth ECPR and in the more general version, we really encourage transparency and openness. So we just kind of encourage people that it's okay to be open about your own limitations or about something that maybe you need support with as someone who is doing the supporting. And it's okay to kind of ask for help or to step out and take a minute or to seek some maybe mentorship or guidance on something, or to just say like, this is, you know, too much right now. I need to prioritize my own self-care or me CPR. So that's something we really encourage. We encourage that for both participants and for trainers. So I think that that's something that's really present in youth trainings, and we actually end up, I think, having quite a few really good conversations about boundaries and the importance of respecting those.
Yeah, we have another comment that says, I think it's worth questioning what, quote, boundaries should be. And yeah, this is a good discussion. I think there's a difference between like having healthy human to human kind of boundaries and not letting yourself be overwhelmed necessarily by someone else or to kind of taken over by their presence or whatnot, versus I think how boundaries are often used in the clinical world is as power. Like you can't get close to me because I have a degree. And so I'm not going to share anything with you because I have this degree and I have this power over you. So I don't need to do that. I'm here to fix you. And what we found in ECPR is actually it's not a clinical practice. It's we need to share something of ourselves to connect with someone else. So do you have any reflections on that?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say that with like the whole boundaries thing, it is important that people know we're not trying to like impose certain beliefs on people. We're not trying to force people to think a certain way. It's just like a very open discussion, and we're just trying to listen and be there. Like, it's definitely not very like, oh, this is how things are and this is what you have to do and listen to us. It's not like that at all. it's very like we're all in this together and we're all like communicating, we're all expressing how we feel. It's just a very like community oriented kind of training. So yeah, just wanted to make sure everyone knew.
Yeah, and we've had several. Thank you, Breeza. We've had several questions come in about the PowerPoint and the recording. The PowerPoint is actually saved as a PDF in the handouts. You should be able to see that in your control panel. You can download that directly from your control panel right now if you want to. It will also be posted on our website. I'll put that in the chat. But it's powertoyou.org, along with the recording, the archive. So the whole thing will be on our website, and I think you would agree that this is a very powerful and useful webinar. So even after today, hopefully lots of people will make use of it. We had another question come in. What is the difference between CPS, Certified Peer Specialist, and eCPR? And I can take that one, I guess. Certified Peer Specialist is a much broader training. It may include aspects of eCPR in some of the trainings, but it includes a lot of different things. Usually training on trauma, whatever perspective that particular training is using for peer support. All kinds of different kind of modules, and it's a lot. I think it's usually a much longer training. I should know because I'm a certified peer specialist too. And eCPR is a very specific training. It's emotional CPR is a practice that you can be certified in through a 12-hour training. So it's a certification training where during the training you do a lot of practice. So minimal theory and a lot of practice of eCPR. Let's see if there's anything else that came in. Yeah, maybe last question. If someone is very verbally abusive, what do you do? Anybody want to take a crack at this?
Well, again, I would say, just from my experience, I think it's really hard when someone's verbally abusive because that can be shocking and you might not know what to do. And this happened to me a month ago. Another friend of mine was being just very verbally abusive and cursed at me. And in that moment, I realized, yeah, I don't want to be your friend anymore. But in the moment, I was not strong enough to like defend myself. I just started crying. So sometimes in the moment it's hard, and so I understand. But after the next day, I kind of gathered my thoughts. I told someone, and I separated myself from that person. And I decided that wasn't a person that should be in my life if they were gonna call me those names. But I think a good first step is telling someone, is talking to someone, because once you talk to someone, then you start to realize, oh, I really don't deserve to be treated like that. I really don't deserve to be called those names because I didn't do anything wrong. So I think it's definitely important to talk to someone who's close to you and express what you're feeling.
All right. Well, we're getting to the end, and I want to definitely want to let Felicity and Shira go because they are doing a youth training in 1 minute. So thank you to the panelists again, Breeza, Felicity, and Shira. It's a pleasure to work with you. This was an amazing presentation. Thank you everyone for your participation. I want to remind you that there is a Healing Voices screening tonight at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. There's also another webinar in this series next week, Wednesday. I'm just going to put that in the chat again, those links. And we hope to see you next week or at another National Empowerment Center event, and maybe at the film screening tonight. So thank you all, and have a great day.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. And thanks, Oryx, for hosting.
Thank you.